Not too much for us to go through here today. I'll throw it over to Jono for a bit of an intro, and we'll get stuck in.
So we are really fortunate to have our next guest on. Really grateful that he's been able to jump on. Just let's list a few things he's done. I know I've missed a bunch here, but let's go. Rode across the Atlantic, rode the Tasman, kayaked the Murray River, completed the crossing of the Gobi Desert while dragging all his gear with him. Next one, he's climbed the highest peak on 6 continents, including Antarctica. He's cycled from cycled from Perth to Sydney, obviously in Australia. Led expeditions through Papua New Guinea. He's run ultramarathons, and it's just, I know I've forgotten a fair bit of stuff there, but we welcome Luke Richmond to the pod.
Lads, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Just chatting to John on the way in here about how base jumping seems like the ultimate test of overcoming and control of fear.
Fear is the right word when it comes to that sport. It was the one, I guess, pivotal point, and one of the biggest lessons I learned on adventures was about controlling fear, and that only came around when I started to base jump. It is a very, very dangerous sport, and I had a couple of really bad openings, and then I had a buddy die in the sport, and I said, right, that's enough. That's the last red flag for me. So I hung up my wing, or sold the wing. All you've got is these 3 to 5 to 10 to 20 seconds of beautiful euphoria when you're plummeting towards the ground with this just incredible rush of information and objects and wind and ground coming at you. And you have to pitch your parachute and save your life every single time. Fear is always there, and your hands will be shaking and your heart rate's getting jacked up and you're getting very nervous. And it's a cascade of emotions that you have to control, or it can make you make a mistake. It can get you into a state where you're not really processing everything correctly, and that can get you killed in this sport very, very quickly. There's no injuries in base. Most of the time it's death. So you have to learn how to control this one big emotion. And I learned over time that I could break down the process of what I was doing, similar to a pilot about to take off from an airport. They've got this full checklist of everything they need to do to make that act safe. And that's what I did for my jumps as well. I'd be standing on the edge, your hands are shaking, all that emotion's taken over, and I'd just start going through this mental checklist of everything I would need to do in order to survive this jump. By the time I get to the bottom and I've ticked off every single one, knowing I've done it all perfectly, that fear and that shaking hand just calms down and it goes away. And only this euphoria takes over and you want to jump out into that void. So I just learned how to, I guess, dampen or control that fear response by being very prepared and going through that checklist.
Reference to just how on different levels we're on right now. I was out training and it was really strong currents, really cold. And again, I know how soft I'm going to sound here, but I'm a very average swimmer. And I come off my kayak. I couldn't touch. The current was strong. My kayak started drifting away. I couldn't breathe because how cold the water was, and I did start to panic a little bit, and I was like, I'm all on my own, no one knows I'm here, and then I just had to calm myself down and go, all right, you're shit at swimming, but you can go get your kayak.
It doesn't matter, mate, because it's the same emotion. When you find yourself in that type of scenario, you just try and take a moment of pause before you run through your bit of a checklist and go, hold on a second, what's going on here? Take a breath. I've got my flotation device. Just hang on, be cold, be scared, be in the water, but just take a few seconds to analyse stuff. I took a phone call yesterday with a friend up in Sydney whose mate had just passed away. 50 years old, went to the hospital to get himself checked because he had a couple of, heart issues over that week. He was a bit worried. It was too busy, so he left and died in the car park. That's a legit story that happened yesterday. And every day, every week, I hear stories like that, and it just reaffirms my choices in life, just to disregard the money, disregard feeding the ego and all the stuff that I used to love and cherish and still do a tiny bit every now and again, but to pump it all into experiences and fun. to get the most out of life, because, mate, my car park could be tomorrow, it could be a week, it could be 5 years. Like, we all just don't know.
A couple of months ago, you finished rowing, was it New Zealand to Australia?
Myself and Grant, this was my second attempt and his fourth attempt at crossing the Tasman under human power. And, yeah, we smashed it, mate. We had a seamless mission finally. Yeah, the first 2 times that my buddy Grant tried, he was rescued, the boat was destroyed. The third time we tried together, we got destroyed out there and ended up back in Australia, but we self-rescued ourselves out, so we didn't need assistance. By the time this fourth time came around, we'd reassessed the whole project. We built a brand new boat from scratch. We decided on a new route from the top of the North Island in New Zealand, trying to get back to Australia. Prior to that, we're trying to do the southern route from Australia to New Zealand through that Southern Ocean, which was supposed to be in your favour, and, it's a fast route, but the waves are massive and you have, really cold water down there. A lot of that Southern Ocean influence from Antarctica comes through and just smashes you. So we thought we'd try this northern route. We were set up ready to leave from the top of the North Island as that real big cyclone hit Brisbane just recently. As it hit there, we literally shoved off that day. And because that huge weather system moved west and sucked all that bad air away, we had a beautiful high-pressure start. So everything was in our favour. So that first 4 or 5 days, we were flying. Then Mother Nature just stacked up another high pressure and another one. We had the perfect crossing for that 3 weeks you could ever imagine.
We did mention, Greg and I, to each other that we do run a risk with having Luke on, in the sense that what we're doing is hard. Like, we think it's going to be difficult, but we're going to look so soft. Like,
just moseying down a river. You're just going to stay in the boat long enough. You know what I mean?
Mate, not at all.
It's not really life-threatening. It's not really, extreme.
Yeah. But what you guys are doing, it's one of my favourite trips of all time, hey?
Yeah.
Perfect adventure. Safe. No one's going to roll up and kill you. You can literally drink the water. There's fish there if you want to eat them. It is just perfect, mate. I recommend that trip to everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think people take me up on it, but I say go and do it, because it's a beautiful part of the world and it's right there in your backyard.
Do you build all your own vessels?
So when you start to think about all the things you need for an ocean crossing in order to make it safe, it just takes it to this top tier. And the top tier builders in the world for these type of vessels, there's one in Europe that's pretty good, but the best are out of the UK with a company called Rannoch. Okay. So Grant especially, and myself, we've used Rannoch for nearly all of the vessels. And they just do an incredible job. They've tried and battle tested so many models over the years. When it came to the Cape York trip, where I wanted to, do something a little bit different, I took an old surf boat from a surf club, the big, double scull, bloody massive things. Yep. Gutted that, turned it into a little rowboat, but then put an electric outboard on the back, 6 panels, a couple of big truck batteries, and took that from Townsville all the way up to Lockhart River, right up near Cape York there. And that was an amazing trip. And I was sort of shitting myself a bit in the beginning, but by the end, I was really, really enjoying the whole thing. All the risk, all the exposure. Oh, mate, the crocs are next level. I had a couple of monster crocs creep up at night time. I set up like trip wires on these, it's like a military-grade trip wire set to a primer cap. So when they get tripped, it goes bang, like a big shotgun sound, and it wakes you up so I could come out and get rid of the crocs. But I had some that crept up with the high tide, and I was sleeping in my little single tent just on the edge of this sort of reefy island thing, 500 clicks from anywhere. Nowhere was there other vessels or people, right? It's just me. And I heard this almost like a guttural growl, just like an exhale, and it instantly woke me up. Got my head torch, pointed it out, and there's this monster croc, probably 4 or 5 meters away at the top of the high tide. His head's probably 1/2 meter wide, 6 meters long, and I packed it. Unreal.
How many potentially life-threatening situations do you reckon you've been in? Another day, if the coin flipped the other way, she's all over.
It's a really good question. But I guess it's all a matter of perspective. If you're looking in from the outside, you would think 1,000 times, this guy's batshit crazy, always out there risking his life. When you look at it from where I'm sitting with, almost 20 years of experience and the skill set and everything that we know, it still looks pretty hairy, but a lot of it is controlled. As for real time, oh, mate, there'd probably be a half a dozen in there. Let's say that, maybe half a dozen over the last 20 years of, wow, that was just pure milliseconds of luck that I'm still here. I talk about suffering a lot in my my speeches and some of my talks, because to get through the big expeditions and some of these, just brutal days where you've been awake for days, your body's destroyed, your mind's destroyed, you're just crying and you want to go home. I'd learned how to be grateful for that type of suffering in order for the volume and intensity of it to turn down a little bit so I could keep going with it. So just to be grateful in those moments allowed me to carry on and get through them. But there's a very big difference between suffering by choice and just suffering by circumstance. So it's a bit of a slippery slope to say that, you've got through this trauma in your life back here, so you should be able to smash this stuff over here. I think it's two different mindsets. Yes, there could be some narrative, and there is with me specifically, that when you had my rock bottom moment, waking up in jail, getting hosed down by the cops because you're just a drug addict, loser, that there was a seed of hope in that guy and this sort of desire for adventure and knowing that life is very finite, to then get himself out of that state and go on to this life of adventure. So I think that story, that narrative for me specifically, definitely carries through into the expeditions, because I still have that seed deep in me to keep going and doing more and more and more and more. But I don't think that would be the same for most people. A lot of people don't choose their suffering. Unfortunately, it does get forced on them through circumstance and the like. So overcoming adversity in any form, mate, whether it's, doing a hard training session, overcoming addiction, alcoholism, whatever, surviving on expeditions, it puts energy into your resilient bank, this foundation that makes up all of us, is our, ability to handle the big bad world out there. And to overcome anything is going to add to that bank, and that's always a bonus.
Do you follow the McLean brothers?
Mate, I'm following them now. I was chatting to their manager just the other day. Yeah.
Right. That's, for anyone not aware, they're currently in the middle of rowing the Pacific Ocean. Three brothers from Scotland, and that really inspirational stuff, doing it for clean water projects. And
smashing it. They're doing great.
Yeah, they are absolutely flying.
Like, how many kilometres do you think we need to be covering a week?
You also need, getting back to that resilience bank, a mindset that will allow you to suffer, because if you haven't prepared for that specific event, the level of physical and mental suffering will be higher. So you have to have a tolerance to know and handle what's coming. What's your sleep like? What's your physical capacity at the moment? What's your resilience bank like? Have you got a reference point to what being awake for 12 hours and having screaming shoulders and back and everything feels like? To say that you need to be able to knock out 100K days in 10 hours before we can even start this thing, I don't think you ever set parameters like that. It's just pointless. Yep. It's just about being able to handle what's coming, and do I have the physical ability to not break down en route?
I'm a bit worried about the sleep deprivation and the body breakdown over time. But yeah, I'm prepared to suffer.
I just don't have that thing where I stop. Like, I'll just keep going, sort of thing. And that's where, when I come up with this to start with, one thing that I was thinking about a lot was I really want to test it out. Just want to see how far I can keep pushing before I, lose it.
First, yourself, how you're going to handle the suffering and the punishment. But then how do you guys work together when you're both in that state? When you're sleep deprived, when everything's screaming, can we still have an amicable conversation and do some problem solving and make critical decisions when we're like that? So as part of your preparation somewhere in the next 16 months, you don't have to do it on the water. It can just be, look, let's just throw a backpack on and go do 2 straight nights on a trail together and just walk 50 Ks or 80 Ks or whatever, just to take a bit of a physical toll, nothing that's going to damage you, but just to stay awake and chat to each other. Yeah. Just so you know, okay, he's really starting to piss me off now on, hour 42, but we got to make some decisions about which way to go, left and right. Can you get through those little scenarios? And that's the stuff that is like the glue on expeditions. If you have that in a team, you can get through anything.
Your expedition through Papua New Guinea, obviously that got a bit wild.
I was on my 7 Summits projects, and one of the 7 Summits is a mountain in West Papua called Carsten's Pyramid. To get to the mountain back then, you had to go through the jungle to get to base camp, and then the actual climb is only about a 13-hour rock climb, start to finish, so not a crazy project. But the 7 days through the jungle, you're going through a lot of different villages and districts and regions, and they all have some, real big problems over there with tribal warfare and everything else. But back down in the cave system, all of this monsoonal rain had seeped through and dislodged a big portion of the cave roof that came down and crushed the porters where they were camped up. And it really mangled one of these young guys. And in their world, it was an eye for an eye. A few of the elders from the group that we had with us come charging up the valley with machetes and spears, just, ready to, kill or maim one of us to replace, their guy that had been crushed. So myself, one of the other guys, the interpreter, we went down to the cave system the next morning, left the rest of the team at base camp, got in there, and it was super tense. We pretty much thought we were going to walk into an ambush and just get messed up. But we got over to the body. Everyone's a bit emotional and crying and angry. Blood coming from the ears, proper wreck, this kid, young guy. I thought, oh, shit, he's dead. What are we going to do here? And Dean, the guy I was with, he was a mountain rescue guide over in the US, so he had his basic drills down, drops down, checks the chest, just doing a bit of ABC, and this young guy was barely breathing, just hanging on. So the only thing we could do with this kid was, he was probably 19 years old, this guy, a young man, was try to rescue him over the mountain to an area called the Freeport Mine. There's a huge open-cut gold mine on the other side of this peak that was like off limits. We were told, do not go there. It's got massive humanitarian rights issues. They're at war with the Free Papua movement, this big militia group. So you're just not supposed to go there. But that was our only chance to try and help this young man. So we built a stretcher out of a tarp and with the porters humped this guy up valley, over the mountain ridge line, down into the pit. Dean and I flagged down literally a mining truck going past down in the pit. And then they brought out the mine ambulance. We were just pumped over the moon. They took this young guy away. Okay, the young guy's been taken to the hospital, all good. We don't know what's going to happen with him. But if he does die, what's going to happen when we get back to Shagapa? This was the village that we started at. Yeah. What happens when we get back to Shagapa and his family is there? Are we going to be safe? And they didn't really give us a straight answer. And we asked them a few more hypotheticals like that. And we just couldn't get a straight answer out of these guys. So as a team, we thought, oh, look, we got to try and get ourselves out of this situation. We can't trust our porters now to go back into the jungle with them for 7 days and get back to this remote village. We don't know what's going to happen. So we thought we could surrender ourselves to the mine maybe, and they could help us, extract out of country. Actual Free Papua movement had attacked the mine in that 24-hour period. We were thrown into a shipping container and detained. And we ended up staying there for 5 days or 6 days in the container. On one of those days, during a security changeover point, a random couple of miners, Australian miners, bludging, were just doing a tour of the pit before they get flown out via the rescue, and they found us in this container. And they actually notified mine security, the embassies, and everyone that we were getting detained there in this container. They end up putting together their own little team to try and circumvent security and smuggled us out, dressed as miners, in these mine vehicles at like 2 a.m. to a waiting helicopter that flew us out to Tamika, this little town down in the valley, and then flew us out to Bali on a 737.
From my understanding, it's actually really tricky, to be allowed to go to Antarctica.
Anyone that does have the chance, even if it costs you half your mortgage, get down there. It is a beautiful part of the world, Antarctica. We booked in with a commercial guiding company. So they run all the logistics on the continent for all the scientists and, government officials and all of us crazy adventurers. So it's a really controlled landscape, mainly for, the environmental reasons are a big reason they control everything like that, but also just the logistics. It is so hard to get down there. So these guys set up a base every year They carve out a blue ice runway that people can then buy on and utilize. And we flew down from the tip of South America down to the ALE base. The beautiful part about Antarctica in summer is the sun doesn't go down. It gets to this sort of twilight period where it dips just below the horizon and then it just comes back up again. So you've got plenty of time to traverse glaciers, climb on good snow and ice through that twilight night period where it's really safe. And then you can sleep up during the day when all the snow gets really soft and avalanches and danger kicks in.
You're, an inspiring man, Luke. So look, thanks heaps. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
It's an absolute pleasure, lads. I love what you're doing, and please keep reaching out, asking questions. You're inspiring the next generation that's coming after you, so don't slow down, keep pushing.
Thanks again, obviously, to Snowies for allowing us to use their podcast studio, all the support they're giving us at the moment with gear and whatnot as well. The Stubbies, who have done our intro song from the start, Adelaide band, very cool bunch of guys. They had only the one song on Spotify. It is now doubled to 2.
I have a new song on Spotify. It's called Louisiana. Make sure you go and give that a listen as well.
Check them out, absolutely. Big bit of news. We have another sponsor that's jumped on board, Clean and Cut Bros, a gardening maintenance crew that are chucking us some cash as well, based in South Adelaide. So thanks to those guys, and we really appreciate every bit of support we can get.